Today on Locked On Rockies, the Rockies hold off 100 losses in Game 1 of the doubleheader against the Dodgers, highlighted by more good play from the young guys. Should the Rockies stick with this core or make more trades?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 26th day of September in the year 2023. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, well, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here, is talk Rockies baseball each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Hey, make us your first listen by checking us out on your favorite streaming service and on SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app alongside your Colorado Rockies play-by-play coverage. You can also find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where your support there, your subscription is one of the best, the easiest way to help grow the show. So, today on the show, I want to highlight the fact that the Rockies played a good baseball game against the Dodgers, highlighted again by some exciting young guys and a big veteran player that's been able to start really heating up now, being in the lineup for a bit, returning from injury, and a little bit more exposure of Kris Bryant in the core of this team as we're kind of breaking down the end of this season and starting to look ahead. And I want to talk a little bit about Jase Anderson in 2024. Only dive into the surface because I think we're going to have a deeper discussion about Anderson and some of the arms that the Rockies have turned to in the second half of the season. Again, their stats aren't great, but it's more of the situation that the Rockies are faced with. And with the way Jase Anderson has pitched at times this year, would it be the worst thing in the world to have him fill you in some time as a starter before moving him into the bullpen in 2024? We'll talk about that as well and dive into those type of topics all on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. But we're recording this before the second game, so we're still feeling good. We're feeling the vibes. We're feeling energetic. We're feeling encouraged by what is basically a good look at your Rockies of next year, I would say, as well. This lineup that you saw today, with the exception of maybe Bouchard and Wins, is who you would expect to be playing ball and starting for the Rockies next year. Tovar, Jones, Bryant, Rogers, McMahon, Montero, and Doyle. And, Charlie Blackmon obviously fills in there. Elias Diaz rounds that out as well when we're talking about Bouchard and Wins not being in there. But I was looking and I was talking to myself and thinking about it and going through it. Do you stick with this core? Are you encouraged by this core? Do you like what you have if you're the Rockies as you're going through and they just snapped a 7-game losing streak? They've had the tough stretches. They've had all X, Y, and Z. Are you confident enough in what you're seeing to hang on for the team or hang on to these players? And while some players limit what you're able to do and their movability anyway, when it comes to, say, a Kris Bryant and his contract, and, the commitment to Ryan McMahon as well, might limit what the Rockies can do. Are these players that might find themselves, some of these veterans on the Rockies, could they find themselves on the trading block next year if the Rockies are underperforming to start the year as we approach the deadline? Maybe. I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibilities that the Rockies would maybe move one of their veteran players for the right price. But I think this is it. I think, and I'm okay with sticking with this. I think when we're looking at the changes that the Rockies need to make and the problems and the issues the Rockies need to address, it isn't really on the field. When you're getting a Gold Glove year from your center fielder who's a rookie and getting his first extended looks at Major League at bats, you allow Brenton Doyle the time because his defense does that. How much time is a different story, but you allow him the time and you allow him to have that spot and the confidence going into next year, knowing that center field is Brenton Doyle's spot. Same thing with now Nolan. Nolan Jones is the left fielder for the Colorado Rockies. After this game, it is cemented, firm. There is just absolutely no reason, just like Ezequiel Tovar, the left side of the field is covered. It's taken care of. You have Ryan McMahon, you have Ezekiel Tovar, and you have Nolan Jones. And I really don't think the Rockies would move Ryan McMahon. I think the Rockies value Ryan McMahon more than other teams do. I think Ryan McMahon's ceiling or still potential ceiling that he can reach in his best moments helps the Rockies. He's still someone that is contributing for the Rockies this year. Again, he's not a player that is a nuisance or a hinder to the Rockies. I mean, in fact, far from it. He's a 3.1 WAR player. He's got a 245 batting average. He's got the 23 home runs. He's driven in 70. He scored 80 times himself. He's, and he has that potential. I don't think it's that crazy to think that Ryan McMahon can be a 25-10 player next year. 25 home runs, 10 stolen, because I think the Rockies need to overall be more aggressive in certain situations. I don't think don't send Ryan McMahon all the time, but you're able to just see you've seen enough from him to kind of buy in and feel good. Just like I think Brendan Rodgers' health is the biggest question mark surrounding him because his impact on the field can already be seen. It can, and it's immediate. And when you look at this year and when you look at some things with the Rockies, how many games would you have ever wanted to play Harold Castro or Alan Trejo over Brendan Rodgers? And the answer would be 0. I mean, that's plain and simple. If the Rockies can stay healthy in 2024, we will see the true capabilities and the true potential of the core that the Rockies have built. So I don't think the Rockies will make any move, and I don't necessarily think you have to be jumping immediately to make changes, but you are going to have to be creative because you're looking at this team and you're looking at some of the numbers and you're looking at the potential and you're looking at the impact, and it's still not going to blow a lot of people away. I think you would see a step forward in offense. You'd see a team be better. You'd see the Rockies be a better threat at home especially. But this team and the way it's constructed isn't going to be an offensive powerhouse, or at least one that you think at the front of your mind is an offensive powerhouse, unless everyone takes steps forward next year. That includes Brendan Rodgers taking steps to being able to stay on the field longer, Ryan McMahon being able to shorten the down spirals, and Chris Bryant is same thing with Brendan Rodgers is staying on the field and navigating the dip in the power. How can Chris Bryant has to, it does add depth. He has professional at-bats to the lineup, but that power dip and the lack of home runs is something that we have to be concerned about. So while I think the Rockies do have good pieces in place for the majority of their core, they still aren't dominant. They're still that roster still doesn't scream, holy smokes, there's not a weak point in the bunch. Because even if you plug in Charlie Blackmon, you plug in your Elias Diaz's and such, you still have a team that hasn't dominated on offense that much this year at all, a team that hasn't hit a lot of home runs, a team that strikes out a lot. So there has to be ways that the Rockies themselves make adjustments, or this team is going to have to add on to it. And it's more than just the pitching. The pitching staff, of course, is something you're going to have to build on. And the pitching staff is something that is the first focus of the offseason. But I think the lack of power and lack of thump and the lack of health, consistent health for some key veterans of the Rockies has to be kept in mind. But this team, and you see it in game 1 against the Dodgers here, the potential is there. We were just talking yesterday not to get too caught up in the silver linings, not to lose focus that this team is losing games. But when they win, like in game 1, that's a good-looking ball club. The potential is there. They're going blow for blow with the Astros. They have a big inning, but they just can't. It's stringing it all together. It's consistency. It's not getting stuck in such lulls, not having so much of a, starting off so hot and then cooling off completely and not staying in that game and really dominating the starter. This core next year has to show the ability to close out ball games and close out teams, and do so by making it, even if the pitching staff isn't going to be that good or something the Rockies can rely on as much, then the offense has to be the one that steps up and puts it away. It was good the Rockies got the late home run from Nolan Jones. He's going to hit 20 home runs this year. Hallelujah. But when we're looking at the future and the enthusiasm and the potential of this core, and if the Rockies have found something that they can stick with and that they should feel confident with, the questions of power of offense and run scoring has to come in, because there are good players, and this team's defense is going to keep them in close games and back up their pitchers and help prevent those big innings. But can the offense handle a tough division of pitching and a tough division and an even tougher league of pitchers as pitchers continue to get better and more elite? And the Rockies are going to continue to see some of the best and the best throughout the business as they see all the teams in the league during the season. I like when games like today, the day game, I need to emphasize, because I'm recording before the night game, so I don't know what's happening at the night game yet. The Dodgers certainly can respond. Loss number 100 could be brutal. The guys could look not good. But when you see today, when this team's able to jump out early against the Dodgers, stick in and back up and handle tight situations, back up their pitcher, take advantage of mistakes from the other team, get a late insurance run to build up the emphasis, navigate the trouble at the end, that's a good sign. But just like we talked about yesterday, just like we talked about all along, the holes are still there, and just these players alone can't be the one to fix it. So this team has work to do, but I don't think this team is going to address many of its problems by trading away a Rodgers, a McMahon, or a Bryant. And I'm pretty confident the Rockies will be bringing Charlie Blackmon back next year, and Elias Diaz probably a factor as well. But when you look at that lineup in Game 1 today, good indication of what the Rockies will look like in 2024 if everyone's staying healthy. And again, that's something key. It is something to factor in this year, is the health of two key players for the Rockies. Would make a difference. Absolutely. But is it enough a difference to make the Rockies really a wild card contender or a much better offense or a dominant team? I don't think so, unless we see more power from this lineup top to bottom. Okay, let's take a look at least at the game, though, and talk about what we liked and go through some of the stuff that was good and some of the things that we enjoyed watching for the Rockies here after the first game of the doubleheader, as the Rockies hold off loss number 100 for now. It might only be a few hours left, but we'll see how the night game goes here. We will do that coming up in segment number 2. But before we do that, got to tell you about our friends at LinkedIn Sales. Are you struggling to close deals? Cold outreach is wasting the time of both the buyer and seller at every stage, especially when sellers are using shallow and outdated data. Your organization can overcome these challenges with technology that translates comprehensive, high-quality buyer data into real-time insights. These deeper insights empower sales reps and teams to adopt the habits of top performers, which leads to better outcomes like more pipeline, higher win rates, and larger deals. We call this deep sales, and we've built the first sales platform of the next generation of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Right now, you can try the LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's a 60-day free trial of the new LinkedIn Sales Navigator when you check out linkedin.com/lockedon. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon to get started today. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming service, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network and the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where your subscription is the easiest way to help the show grow, and I really appreciate it, and I give you a virtual fist bump for doing so. You can also find us on SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app alongside your Colorado Rockies play-by-play coverage. Your postseason coverage will be there as well, so don't miss out on all the great stuff, all the MLB coverage on SiriusXM. Boy, howdy, do I love beating the Dodgers. And the Rockies have only done that 2 times this year, including today. And it was, like we talked about in the first segment, it was the young guys. It was the core and mixed in with 2 key veterans. I mean, as we were looking and talking about how much we can believe in this core, I really don't think it can be understated the impact that Brendan Rodgers and Chris Bryant can have on ball games, and it was on full display here today for the Rockies in the first inning. Chris Bryant getting an RBI there, followed by Brendan Rodgers. That's a really good 1-2 punch, especially when your sandwich of Nolan Jones, Chris Bryant, Brendan Rodgers. That's a good that's a good core. Two young guys and an experienced vet to go in there to be right in the meat of your lineup. And outside of that, you have Ezekiel Tovar, who swung a surprising and better bat this year, and the power hungry and power potential of Montero really pads a nice 1-6 for the lineup for the Rockies. Sean Bouchard, Austin Wynns, and Brenton Doyle, however, leave things to be desired at the bottom part of the lineup, and this is something you can kind of feel like a little bit similar when the Rockies looked at their lineup in the playoff times, where 1-6 was pretty darn good. You felt confident, but the last part of the Rockies lineup you felt worried about. But Brenton Doyle has at least seemed to start making some adjustments and some changes here of late when it comes to some offense, especially when you're looking at some extra field or some extra base hits. In his last 7 games, he has had 6 hits, 2 RBI, gotten 2 walks in that time, an average of 261. An OBP of 320 and a slugging of 435. The last 15 games, he's left the yard. He's gotten 9 RBIs. He's walked 3 times. Strikeouts still high up there, but the offensive numbers are up and improving for Brenton Doyle. And when you're looking at that offense or that defense, where he, if you were listening to the broadcast today, he plays Gold Glove caliber defense. I mean, it's the big X factor in that game. And a big thing that I liked from today's game too was the Rockies able to handle adversity and handle the mistakes of the Dodgers. I mean, this game really should have been a shutout, or could have been a shutout, depending on how that drop third strike and the pitch that gets away there in the 7th inning goes. I'm sorry, the 6th inning for the Dodgers, but the Rockies able to respond the following inning in the 7th. That's a good blueprint right there. Staying in there, limiting the damage, and then when the Dodgers are the ones that make the mistakes, when the Dodgers are the one that overrun the bases, when the Dodgers give you opportunities to cut them down at home, 2 plays at home in back-to-back innings for the Rockies, bam, that's what you do. That's how you do it. You got to beat teams like the Dodgers by playing that. They matched up in hits. The Rockies were the ones driving in the runs, and the ones that weren't running themselves out of situations. With those 2 outs at home, there were 2 moments there where the Dodgers were threatening, and in moments where they could have tied the ball game and made things a lot more interesting on their side. But by being able to utilize the defense of the Rockies, by punishing the mistakes of the Dodgers, that's when the Rockies can find themselves in the driver's seat. As much as they were dominated on the offensive side there for a good stretch of that ball game there from the starter, who was, let me double check. I just wanted to get the starter. I heard his name a lot. Pepio, who came in and really did the damage for the Dodgers with the 9 strikeouts over 6 and the opener there, Caleb Ferguson, the one responsible for most of the damage. But jumping out in front, going blow for blow, taking advantage of the other team's mistakes, exactly the blueprint to beating a team like the Dodgers, and always really, really great to see when they take down LA. And now all the Rockies got to do to split this one of the final 2 series is win 1 more game, and then if you win the doubleheader tonight, you sweep the doubleheader, you can set yourself up for a series win. It's something that not a lot of folks probably expected at this point in the season, and shows the fight and the left for the Rockies. So really good, really great afternoon in a lot of ways. Again, would love it if the Rockies could avoid a double-digit strikeout game ever at some point. Would be really nice. But all in all, when we're staying positive, when we're keeping things on the positive side, we got to highlight the fact that this was a good ball game for the Rockies. They handled the adversity. They had good teams. They had moments where they had to step up and make plays. They had moments where they had to step up and get pitches, and they did. The Rockies pitching staff, even though they still ended up using 5 arms, was pretty good today. Great, even when you consider the fact that it was a shutout for the game, and the only thing that happened was a pitch that got away there towards the end of things. So But just when you put it in perspective here, when we're talking about the core and when we're talking about things that the Dodgers do well, the Rockies as a with those pitchers and as a team struck out 8 batters on the ball game, whereas again that's 11 batters struck out by the Dodgers pitching staff, and one of those pitchers being responsible for most of the damage. So that's another little benchmark and another thing you're looking at and looking for when you're comparing the Rockies to great teams. Again, I know that maybe comparing to the Dodgers isn't fair, and you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, but that's the greatness. That is the level you're chasing. So that's the type of ball games, and those are the type of the performances you're going to have to go after, especially when the Rockies are able to pull the win away, because it's not often that you can get dominated like that in terms of strikeouts to win those ball games. So we'll see. Game 2, doubleheader. Dodgers, they're good. Rockies looking to avoid that 100th loss for a 1 day more. We'll see if it happens here, as the nightcap is just a couple of hours away here from recording. Before we wrap up for the day, I wanted to talk about Chase Anderson, and I wanted to talk about a potential role for Chase Anderson next year, and kind of preview ahead of looking at his offseason and the potential for him in that, and a potential role that he could play for the Rockies if the Rockies do indeed want to bring him back. Let's do that coming up in segment number 3. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about Jase Medical. Modern medical care and treatment are important, but our global supply chains are fragile. Things like pandemics, natural disasters, and foreign travel may cut you off from the treatment you need. Jase Medical is your solution. Just fill out the online form, and one of Jase Medical's board-certified physicians will review it to determine whether medications are safe and appropriate. Then Jase will send your prescription to one of their partner pharmacies, where your order will be filled and mailed directly to your home. You can also send your physician a message for answers to treatment-related questions at any time. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase Case. Save more than $360 by getting antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using the code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's JASE Medical.com, JASE Medical.com, promo code LOCKEDON. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming service, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. You can also find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. You can find us on SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app, alongside your Colorado Rockies coverage. They got your playoff coverage as well, something the Rockies won't be participating in, but that's all right. Their stretch of playing teams of shaking up the playoffs is over as well. Both, I know the Dodgers and Twins are playoff teams, but things pretty wrapped up, at least for those teams in these series here, as the Rockies are playing now their finals at 5 games? 5 games of the season here in 2023. Season flew. It really did. Kind of crazy to think that we're already at the off season, and it was a season that will probably be forgotten by a lot of Rockies fans, as one that will live in infamy as well. So it won't be fully forgotten. This one has already made its permanent mark on the history books for the Colorado Rockies. Not a very fun way to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the team. I wanted to talk a little bit about Chase Anderson, and we're going to do more in-depth looks at players going forward throughout the offseason, and Chase Anderson will be featured in it. But another good start today from him, and another moment where you look at Chase Anderson and you look at the situation the Rockies are in, and you sit there and you say, maybe, okay, if that's truly the best option. You might remember, you don't have Herman to start the year. You're not going to have Senzatella. You're not going to have Herman and Antonio Senzatella for a good chunk of next year. You got the young guys. You have a bullpen that you got to worry about. I don't think it's going to be the worst thing if the Rockies stick with Chase Anderson and figure out ways to use him less as a starter, or someone that can do something like an opener or a modified opener, because Chase Anderson has proven a few times this year that he can handle himself the first 2 times through the order. But then when things start getting long, that's where things get tricky. And that has value. It really does. Because the Rockies could sit there and he could be the 5th starter. He could be someone at the end. You're hoping that you get Freeland and Gomber, and then you have your Lamberts, your Davises, your Rollisons. You have everybody, obviously. All the young guys the Rockies are trying to work with and use. But for one more year, another year that's most likely going to be a tough year, and one that isn't going to be one where the Rockies, I don't see it as it being a dominant stretch for the Rockies next year. I don't. But he gives you an interesting amount of depth and flexibility of someone that you can use. He's a starter that you can have him start games. He can slip into a long relief role. He can do multiple things for the Rockies. And if he's able to have the stronger stretches of the season versus the weaker stretches of the season, he can be all right. He's got the high ERA. He's obviously got the low win total, doesn't have a win. But at times this year, he has shown his ability to be a stable pitcher, someone that's able to handle business, and someone that can make an adjustment, and someone that can be effective. Especially when you're looking at, just go back here in the month of September here. This is going to be the month where he's going to have his second most strikeouts in this month. I don't know how much I don't think we'll see Chase Anderson here until the weekend, but he's almost got a season high in strikeouts this month. Unfortunately, season high in walks. The home runs way down from June when he had at 10. He's been sitting at about roughly only 3 home runs given up a month. Everything is inflated this year, but he's also pitched more this month than he did in July. Didn't pitch in August at all for the Rockies. So again, some streakiness there, but the 3.86 ERA this month is the lowest he's had all year since the month of May, and it's not flashy, but he has expressed interest in coming back. The Rockies are looking at it, and they're probably saying it's someone that's interested in pitching for us, especially in a starting capacity. They can go for it. So I just kind of wanted to open up that topic because I don't have a clear answer until we look deeper into the numbers, look into the rotation and the future for the Rockies. But at times this year, I've wanted to sit here and be fully confident in Chase Anderson, but we've also seen the worst. We've also and there's too many players for the Rockies that aren't consistent enough with the good to great play mixed in with the potential floor and the potential issues that they deal with. And Chase Anderson is a player that falls on that list. But great start. Great couple of starts here for Chase Anderson over his last couple. If you want to go and look at let's see, last 3 starts here for Chase Anderson. He had that performance against San Francisco where he didn't give up a hit, but still gave up the earned run on the walk. The walks are the big problem because on that gem, 7 strikeouts, no hits, but 5 walks. So and a crooked number in walks the whole time, but able to get that strikeout, able to do some damage, and able to handle some of the pro batters against the Dodgers in his most recent start as well. So he can do a job for the Rockies. It's just the Rockies can't overcommit to it either and over-rely on Chase Anderson as well. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for joining us and checking out the pod today. You can find us on your favorite streaming service. You can find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. You can find us on SiriusXM. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. And if you need a second listen, why not check out all the other great Colorado sports podcasts, the Locked On Broncos, the Locked On Avalanche, the Locked On Nuggets, and the Locked On Buffs podcast. Until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.